Can you imagine?
Stand by.
Professor Collins Odote, who is Assistant Dean, Faculty of Law, University of Nairobi. Also, we have with us Churchill Suba, who is the Executive Director of Kenya National Civil Society Center. We continue pace with, of course, what is happening right now with the fuel subsidy. Just looking at what the politics has been this particular week. And I mentioned also, we are eagerly awaiting to hear from the President today, what will be the outcome from the meeting they will be having with Kenya Kwanza legislators in Naivasha today. Will he also announce his government, who is in the cabinet and who is holding what docket? We are yet to know if it will happen today as well. But before we took a short break, we are to hear from Ambrose Weda as we also close the debate on the subsidy. And I had mentioned and raised that particular question, is there given any time frame for the president to, make the elephant dance? When the subsidy is pulled away, how long? Because we will suffer. This particular fuel price will eventually spike up. But for how long will it be up there before now we get an even keel, an equilibrium?
Thank you, Dibal. For lack of words, we call every intervention subsidy. Subsidy can be one, capital investment. For instance, what is put on fertilizer is like a capital investment to take care as we move forward. That's economics. It looks a bit, you look surprised. It's complicated. So that, let me give you an example. If, let's say, you are a farmer and the cost of inputs become too much, then you decide, I'm going to open a saloon. I'm not going to go on with growing maize. Now, the repercussions to the economy, eventually when there's no maize, you have to import, you look at foreign exchange, you look at shortages, all these things. That is now how a government looking forward say, let us cushion these people so that they are able to be sustained in this sector as we move on. That is one. That time it appears like an economic injection, a capital injection. Now when you go to the fuel, the subsidy as we call it is just like, if the cost would be, let's say 100 shillings, but government is looking at the economy and say that would hurt the people. So they take from your taxes and like they pay a portion of the cost for you. The cost is 100 shillings per liter, but they make you pay 70 shillings and then they pay for you 30 shillings from your taxes collected from elsewhere. Now, that means that the subsidy must be for a specific purpose, for a specific period. For instance, when the oil market is volatile, then you say it will hurt our economy like this, we stabilize it through this. That is for a time. So this subsidy, even the one which was on the oil, there must have been a reason why it was put, and that reason they have to check, has it been fulfilled? If it has not, then it has to be continued. If it has been fulfilled, then they say, we have done it. If it was just state capture, then they come and deal with it quickly. So, looking at the overall things, it will not be removing subsidies on the basis of election pledges. Mm-hmm. Those pledges are, some of them are platitudes made on political platform. When you come to the reality, then you say, look, this will hurt the economy in this. How do we go about it? So let's not expect that the president will come in and say, remove that, remove that, remove. Even when he said it is unsustainable. Mm-hmm. When he now sat as president, he was told, no, it can't come on Monday. Let's look at it within 30 days. Within these 30 days, we do this and that and that. The same way when government wanted votes They quickly brought us unga ya 100. They worked a miracle and the unga became 102 kilo. Now, these are some of the interventions to take care of emergencies, difficulties, and they will be done from time to time, and they should be done, and they can be done. You can criticize while you're still outside government what others are doing, but when you get in, we want that hunger, and we want you to go. And my big brother said hunger has no selection or cannot wait. So the president will not come and say, I made this pledge, I made that pledge, I can't do it. He has to do certain things to keep us comfortable. Cabinet will not be announced within 3-4 days, as we said. I'm not saying I know. But Parliament has to open. The process of getting those who will be PSS have to come in. You have to craft the entire cabinet. And if he was to rush by Friday, either it means he was crafting it before, or it will be in a rush. And if it is a rush, some regions will be left out. Some things will happen. And that, the rush to appear digital and modern will actually be counterproductive. He has to weigh things, weigh that, and then when they announce, Parliament is ready to receive the names, approve them. So in 1 month, I don't think the government will be in place, if you ask me, if you are going to do.
In 1 month?
Oh, yes.
But you just heard from Barak that, you know, some of its decisions cannot be a maverick decision. You need a cabinet, we need a consultation. We've seen what is happening. Process. Remember, Parliament has convened. But how long? Maybe we can just learn from history as well. If it may, you know, you can scratch your memory. How long did it take for Jubilee administration to, you know, name the cabinet? Was it a month?
Almost the same period. Remember, just look at it. Parliament has to, they have to share their slots. Then Parliament has to be opened. As you do that, just listen, as you do that, people who are to be permanent secretaries have to apply, and the PAC has to select them. Shortlist, select. Then the president has then to go through the selecting process. Bring up the names and then send them to Parliament. Parliament will talk to each person. Each cabinet secretary will go there unless he has been there before. Go there, give you a vision, whatever. Then that list is again taken to Parliament. Unless Parliament is so good that they say we are going to sit overnight and so on and so forth and so forth. By Friday, I don't see it myself. And if it is done, I will still say, the president, you could be rushing so much to meet some imaginary expectation, and there will be a problem.
Thank you. Let's hear from Professor Collins Odote.
Debar, you know, I do not know what Ambrose is speaking about, because he says one thing and then confuses with the other. First, Parliament is open. So this Parliament that is going to be opened, I don't know when it will be opened. Parliament was open. They actually already sworn in. Parliament is doing an induction next week for their members. Parliament, the leaderships of the various groups are meeting to elect their leadership. Next week. Parliament is sworn in. The second, the people who wanted to apply to be permanent secretaries already applied. The deadline is next week, if I remember, the 20th of September. That's the deadline for people to apply.
And I hope he has applied.
I hope so too, since he knows that it is not today. The second is, I think, the part that I agree with is that the completion of that completion of that task is a process.
You see, when they say 20th, it means it is after 20th that the interviews are done.
Whether you know you complained when Barak was speaking, now you are doing the same mistake that you are complaining to Barak.
They are used with each other. You are the business.
Let me finish. So in my view, I think the process of appointing a cabinet must start immediately. It will not end immediately, but the process must start. I think for me, between today and next week, the president should nominate his cabinet secretaries. Nominate them so that those names can already go to the speaker, because the speaker is there, so that those names can then go to the committees. I think the reason why they are meeting this weekend is to start determining who are going to the membership of those committees. Because once you take the names, the thing that I think is once you take the names, the committee must process them. But I don't think we require a month to start the process, because if we start the process in a month, it will end of the year.
I didn't say start. It will take. English. Dero.
Ambrose.
It would take.
All right, let him finish.
Ambrose, somebody needs to take you through some disciplinary school so that you learn to listen. And then you disagree after you've listened.
Let's see if you finish.
So I think for me, the second critical point to make, Dibal, is because of the things we've been discussing before, the issue about Morocco, Sahara Republic, the issue about the economy, we're in a situation where legally there is a cabinet, and that's the debate we're having with Barack. Politically, President Ruto is having people in cabinet that he will physically that will not be helping him. He needs his people to come in quickly. You don't need to continue having the gentleman that I saw when he was signing in, the Honorable Davis Chirchir, the Mora Babu Namwamba, and my good friend Korir. You don't need to be seeing them doing things.
You know, he's saying we should be disciplined, but
let him finish.
He's misleading.
No, let him know. You'll bat him. Let him finish.
You don't need to see those kind of people next to the president without having formal appointments, because then people will, if it happens for 1 or 2 days, it's okay, but the sooner you start having people that you've appointed that have constitutional mandate to help you deal with the critical things facing the country, the better. So in my view, I think over the next few days, the president should nominate his cabinet secretary so the process of approving them goes on, and so that by end of this month, we should be having cabinet secretaries sworn in to take over the place.
Right. Churchill?
Yes, I think Collins is right that in any case we already have an idea. We know the faces of some of those that will be in the cabinet. We know the promises that were made, for example, to Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. I mean, who does not know among us here? So what we're waiting for is the portfolios that some of those people will be assigned. We know, for example, those that have been in charge of certain dockets, even as the president was still campaigning. And you know, there is the requirement for public participation. Even if the cabinet secretaries do not have to apply, the Kenyans want to also vet them. You know, Kenyans also have their views. And the earlier they are nominated and proposed for vetting by Parliament, the better, so that Kenyans can also, begin to let the rest know some of the things, the bad things that some of the people being proposed that may have done, because that is what will be brought to the fore and to bear on the final appointment. So I do not want to believe that His Excellency President
William Ruto. You have forgotten the name of your president.
He's getting used to his name.
You know, we were used to him in a different capacity, but he has now made one step forward. So President William Ruto has an idea. I'm sure he has an idea of the people he wants to work with. Those people are the same people we see around him. And I agree with Collins that we do not want people to be hanging around the president informally. Let's begin to hold people to account on the basis of assignments that they've been given to help the president to manage the affairs of this republic. And already those things are cropping up. We don't want the president to be the one first speaking about relations with Zarawi, foreign policy issues. These things need to be thought through. And some of that thinking can be done, and it can be helped greatly with that thinking by, having a political figurehead that is in charge of affairs, so that by the time those things are brought to his attention, they have been refined. They have been refined to a level where the best of decisions can be made with respect to some of the positions that have been taken in the past, rather than the ad hoc manner in which we have seen some of those things handled in the last few days that President William Ruto has been in office.
Mm-hmm. Right. Finally, let's wind up with Barack Obama.
As you are aware, Churchill Suba is being very gleeful about these things for human reasons that are well understood, and which should therefore be excused. However, Collins Odote is wrong when he tells us that there is a cabinet, because there isn't. If there is a cabinet, can President William Ruto hold a cabinet meeting with those people who are being called cabinet?
And can he take decisions with that cabinet? And can he, under the relevant articles of the Constitution, I think they start from 150 to 152, can he then say that this is the decision of the cabinet and here is the presidential seal and signature? So there's no cabinet. Those are placeholders, who should have gone with the president who was in charge. But we do understand that there is need to be meticulous about the process and that it's going to take long. However, time and tide wait for nobody, and therefore the need to begin expediting the process so that His Excellency, the President, does not start looking like he could be making decisions that he shouldn't be making alone. For example, the question of the Sahrawi, you can't just sit somewhere alone as a head of state and government and take the decision that we have now discontinued this one. You need to benefit from your technocrats, from people who have the institutional memory of where it came from your cabinet, take that collective decision and communicate it. And indeed, some of these decisions, like the Sahrawi one, was even processed through Parliament because it came as a factor of a decision by the Organization of African Unity in its days when there were problems about what was then called
the Casablanca
Southern Sahara, because you remember it's a problem that has its genesis in Spanish colonialism in that area, and when Spain was giving up on Mauritania and what became Sahrawi, Algeria and Morocco went on to claim that space, and for a long time they fought over it, up to a point where Algeria said we are now pulling out on condition that Sahrawi becomes independent. And Morocco was saying there will be no independence because this is our territory.
Thank you.
So we have got.
Don't
rush unless.
It's not really rushing because I know if we go on that, it's a different event altogether.
You are sitting on a pin because this is a very important issue where government makes the first decision and it appears it's a wrong one. And it's because government has not been informed. And that is a dangerous trend which needs to be tamed and nipped in the bud quite early. I will speak to you separately about the history.
It's interesting how Barack recognizes this government, but he does not recognize that that government is made up of president and cabinet. I mean, he liberally forgets that he has...
One day when there was President Moi, we were told, in fact it was President Moi, we were told that the president is the government, and even in Parliament people were told to be careful when they are talking about the government. And you remember there was an MP who said when the government advised the government to do the following and the government did not do what the government advised. So
there's government and there's government.
Thank you. On the front cover of the Star, I wanted just to also broach that particular issue. I think it's very important. Ruto to name state capture probe team. And if you flip over there, you can see there's a lot of tribunals that will be formed moving on. The question is, yes, they've been talking about these cartels, they've been talking about the state capture. Do we really need a probing team? Because also, when we talk about our probing team, it means also, you know, they will be sitting allowances here. It will be a task force. It will be given some sort of a tenure, some given months for them to really come up with a report. Do you think this is the wisest fashion of things to be handled when it comes to state capture? Because he claims, or he said that, yeah, he knows the cartels, and as soon as he puts down the Bible, he will go for the cartels. And if you know them as well, you can let him know. Collins.
Dibal, I think 2 or 3 quick things. The first one, even Governor Sakaja yesterday appointed a task force, and people were asking him, why are you appointing a task force which is excluding the chief officer for health? And I laughed. The reason why I laughed is because if you appoint a task force, the task force is supposed to look at what the people who are in service have been doing. So you can't then have the same people in service being part of that task force. Statement number 1. Statement number 2, Dibal, there's going to be task forces. There's going to be allowances paid. So get used to it. Anybody who thinks that task force will not be there.
But is there any rhyme or reason why we should be having this task force?
And that's why I'm making the third point. Yes, there's going to be. The third is the issue about state capture. Is a promise that the president made. So unlike Ambrose, who says that the things that are made during campaigns will not be realized, for me, I think...
I didn't say something like that. Don't quote me. Don't misquote me.
Let him finish.
Otherwise, I'm going to make a remark that your friends will remember outside as you walk out. So be careful.
That's a threat.
Yes,
is that a threat?
And if you call my bluff, I will.
All right, I will not quote you again. Not because I fear threats, but because I don't want to then now have the debate. So let me focus on what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is, I think first of all, the president made the statement about going with state capture. If he forms the task force, he won't be the first country. I think if you go to South Africa had a whole investigation, a whole inquiry into state capture, which had serious implications. So for me, I think the question that as to whether the task force will be formed or not is not the bigger issue. I think the bigger issue is in terms of then determining for government what are the priority actions that you want to take first, how do you ensure those actions are systematic, and how do they address to the root of what is core to your manifesto and what you want to do for government. So for me, I think the debate about there are going to be a task force, I think is a smaller issue, because the task force will be there, not just this one. There's going to be quite a number over the next 5 years, because governments by its very nature operates either through ministries, but there are certain things that require temporary measures that are done through task forces. And people on this panel have sat on many of those. And some of them will continue.
I've never sat on any task force. So
if you realize, I did quote you this time. So relax.
But you have said people on this panel, so that viewers will imagine whether it's one of them. I've never sat on any task force. Be careful with the statements you spew around. You are on live TV.
No. Maybe you've not been asked to sit on this panel.
Even that is not true. But
he has said the people on this panel here have been sitting on task force.
Some people.
He said people.
But we are here, so the viewer just says, "Oh, this is the likes of where who have been." Okay. I've never been on any. Get that clear.
But if you look, flip us to the page that has some of these proposed tribunals in the Star as well. We have so many of them. Yeah, there is a quasi-judicial inquiry on chronism and state capture, right? Quasi-judicial inquiry on chronism and state capture. We have a special tribunal for gross human rights violation. We have inquiry into consumer protection. We have high-level expert task force on sports financing. We have task force on competency-based curriculum. We have task force to review remuneration for security officers. We have task force on electricity reforms. We have task force on diaspora services. Show me the money. It doesn't matter.
No. First of all, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is from the manifesto. I think for me, let's wait for a task force to be formed. Absolutely. Let's look at the terms of reference for that task force. Because if you just look at this list, for example, let me just pick one that at least the president has mentioned, not as president-elect, but as president is going to form, the task force on CBC. Is there anybody who would say that that task force is not necessary?
There is nobody who would say that, and these assignments have got to be undertaken anyway.
But bearing the fact, sorry, Barak, to sound a bit tacky, but we have this task force, and there was a task force also for the CBC itself that was being led by Laban Nairo himself. So this is a task force countering a task force.
The Laban Nairo task force was there, but we are aware that the procedures were not followed. That
the recommendations as well.
We did not have a cabinet white paper, blue paper, that the process was not brought before a national conference on education to process it further, that the whole thing is being implemented piecemeal, even without proper development of curriculums and syllabuses, that we are actually walking in the dark, and we need to find out how far more we can go before we tipple over the cliff. And that assignment must be done anyway by somebody or somebody, if that body becomes a task force. So be it. And in some of them, when you talk about especially this one on state capture, you either process it through a task force that is organized, that has got very clear terms of reference, that has got very clear expected deliverables, or you alternatively engage in witch hunting, where you spot Churchill Suba and you tell him, you are one of those people.
You're a cartel.
You're a cartel. So there must be due process to all these things, and they must be done in a proper formalized context that we all understand, we can question or agree with.
You know,
Churchill, yes.
Looking at some of these task forces and what we most do from tribunals, you get a sense that some of them would amount to duplication. And I want to specifically, as one of those Kenyans who are privileged enough to sit at the Bomas Constitutional Conference, I know it always hurts some of those whenever I refer to my role in the improvement of the human rights situation of this country. It hurts him because he cannot account for his time, during those critical moments. But if, for example, you want to establish a special tribunal for gross human rights violations, why did we establish the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights? A state agency with a specific mandate to look into...
Churchill, let me just start, Martin. I think I have an issue with the mic. I'll try and sort it out. I just hold on to that thought as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but you raise a very germane question. Yeah, if we have the Kenya Human Rights Commission, then why do we need... And I think the case has been put here. You can't, like what Prof was saying, if the CAC is not there, it's very deliberate, because this is a task force. Because it will be, the person who is in the picture, also who is out of the frame looking at the picture at the end of the day, isn't it?
That's why for me the point I was making is that I think just the mere fact that someone said let's form a task force, we can't criticize the idea of forming the task force, because this is not going to be the first time task force are formed. I think what is critical is why is that task force being formed? What are the terms of reference? I think the point that Suba is making is also a fair point, that if you form a task force on human rights violation, the question you must ask yourself, what is it that you want this task force to do which is different from the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights? And you will see that from the terms of reference. I think a priori, you cannot say that we cannot form task forces, because the reality, if we sit here, there definitely will be task forces at the national level, at the county level, at the judicial level, at the legislative level. The only question is what kind of task force, what is its terms of reference, what is its time period, and is it something that could otherwise be done through a different way? There are things that if, for example, somebody wants to find out whether the BAL has been running this show effectively, surely it cannot be, the BAL cannot be asked to to find the reasons. And when a new government comes, they say, there are some things we don't like. So we want to actually find out, like, for example, let's take the one for state capture. Yes. The president in his campaigns went over and over, and even the deputy president said there has been state capture. So if government thinks there has been and want to deal with it, I think what is wrong is then to wake up tomorrow and say, Barak, now let me use Barak. Barak is the cartel that has captured the state. We want to punish Barak. I think you must then find, and let me give a second example. I have seen governors, after they were elected, going around in barazas. I don't know if you guys have seen, going around and in halls saying, this is happening, almost like a mob lynch. Yes. We can't do that. I think if you want to have organized government and you want to think through, it is important to benefit from some thought process which collects and then gives you clarity on what needs to be done. I think the point you are trying to drive, the ball, which is fair, is that in an economy where there is less resources, it is important that we relook at the number of task forces we look at their mandate and not just form for everything, to form for critical things and to give them a clear mandate. And I picked out the one for CBC because for me, it is not just because, it's not mainly for the reasons that Barack said that this went wrong. I think the reality, whether it was right or wrong, we are at a critical place where there have been huge concerns about CBC, huge. And you are damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it's important to have a reflection. If you go to my house, my son will tell you, the only thing he wants, my youngest son is in CBC, the only thing he will tell you, Mimi staki CBC. That's what the child tells you. Yet at the same time, it is not easy as switching off a switch. So you need to think through and ask yourself, what are the options that we have? What do we need to do? That is only possible through a concerted conversation. So that for me is the point I was making about the place of task forces and their rationale.
Right, thank you. I think you have your mic sorted right now. You could
I hope so.
Yeah, you're good. Continue.
Yeah, the point I was trying to make is that if we already, for example, look at task force to review remuneration for security officers. We have in the Constitution, in fact, one of the constitutional commissions is the Salaries and Remuneration Commission that is not supposed just to isolate a particular state agency or department, but to also look at it within the entire spectrum of people serving in state and public offices. Now, when you want to establish a task force, how then do you harmonize the findings and recommendations of that task force within the mandate of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission? And my worry is that, and I've already seen a bit of something that seems to worry me about, the praises that I see coming from the president and his deputy for particular arms of government, the judiciary, IEBC. When you isolate particular agencies of the state for particular praise, it sends also the wrong signal that these departments might become too cozy with the executive to a point of not being able to provide the checks and balances. And so when you venture into the arena of security agencies or officers, then you could also be suspected of attempting to capture certain elements in the state for political reasons, because His Excellency the President and his deputy are politicians. And so I would be cautious when I see task forces to review remuneration for security officers, issues of human rights. Yet we have a report of the Truth and Justice Commission. I thought if the president really wanted to tackle gross human rights violations, the place to go to would be to say, where is the report of the Truth and Justice and Reconciliation Commission? And implement, and say we are going to implement that. If you do that, you'll be addressing a number of these issues, including, what he talked about in northeastern Kenya, enforced disappearances, which have been an issue of great concern to those of us who have been working to promote and protect human rights. So some of these task force, I would say, may not be necessary. But should the president feel in his wisdom that they are necessary, then it must also be clarified how the reports and recommendations of those task forces will relate with the agencies that are already established. Part of the reason we established some of those commissions was to avoid this ad hoc approach to issues of great concern like human rights violations, like salaries and so on. And so personally, I would plead, yes, there are certain things that His Excellency the President and his team in Kenya Kwanza may have said during the campaigns, but there is need to reflect on whether they are really necessary, because I will tell you that, if the president and this government thinks that there are issues of remuneration of security agencies, ask the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to look into it, whether they are being treated fairly in relation to the others. Issues of gross human rights violations. We have a commission that has just been reappointed less than a year ago.
Thank you.
Why not task it? That is the commission, together with the Gender and Equality Commission,
that could perhaps look into violations that specifically, you know, hurt the female gender. So for me, these agencies already exist, and if we were to look at the cost implications, then, you know, some of those costs could be saved by assigning and tasking those agencies to ensure that any issues that the president may think are critical are looked into by that commission, and those commissions already have a reporting line. They file their reports to Parliament and so on and so forth, and those can be done without establishing and reinventing the wheel. Yet we have a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission.
Thank you. Let's leave it at that. You know, after keeping supporters guessing for days, we have Azimio chief making a grand return, I should say, attacking also the Judiciary and IBC on the poll outcomes. You can grab a copy of the Standard for that particular report. And we have also that particular story for you so that you can act as a segue to our next discussion moving forward. Are we out of the woods yet as far as the elections are concerned? Will Azimio la Umoja leader, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, also make good of his promise that he's going to rally, or he can actually rally 1 million people to march to protest outside the presence of the Supreme Court because of the 7 judges? Let's just listen in.
Raila was speaking in Mombasa early today after arriving from Zanzibar, where he had taken a rest following the dismissal of his presidential petition. According to Raila, he needed rest to absorb the impact of the ruling.
And as you know, I've been out of the country. I went to recuperate in the Spice Island of Zanzibar. I took my wife and children and grandchildren also to go and heal out of the shock that they got as a family.
He, however, said neither him nor Kenyans will be intimidated into silence by the Supreme Court ruling.
Shame on the judiciary of this country. And I see them protesting and trying to give threats. And we will talk. The constitution of this country gives power to the people of Kenya. And all those other people exercising power are exercising donated power. So the judiciary is no exception. If they become rogue, we have power as the people of this country to reform them and send them home.
Raila said though he respects the court's decision, he disagrees with it completely.
I am not talking about this thing as Raila Odinga myself. It does not have to be Raila Odinga. But my fear is that if what the people saw happen on the 5th of September is what they expect in 2027, I'm wondering why should the people wake up in the morning to go and queue to vote? Why should women, the elderly, the disabled queue for so many hours to cast their votes, when at the end of the day, it is a mercenary from Venezuela, called Mr. Jose Camargo, who eventually decides who becomes the president of this country.
Raila said he was eagerly waiting to read the full judgment that the Supreme Court judges promised to deliver within 21 days from September 5th. 11 days have already elapsed since the court delivered its unanimous decision upholding the election of William Ruto as president. Tobias Chanji, KTN News, Mombasa County.
We are aware of the harassment and intimidation governors have undergone through by state agencies. The level of extortion by detectives pretending to be fighting graft, whereas they were just extorting money from governors and officials, is a thing of the past. We have told DCI to go back to Kiambu Road and wait for crimes to be reported there. They have no business in government offices, hovering all over and creating a toxic environment for service delivery. We cannot have detectives in government offices because they poison the atmosphere and the environment for civil servants to deliver. So we are going to tell our security officers that they cannot send a junior police officer to go and harass and interrogate an elected governor.
Raila Odinga is going hammer and tongs on IBC and the judiciary, really, of course, castigating them. We have also the Deputy President going on the same length to castigate the DCI, as it were. So what does this really portend, especially for the political tone and tenor that we have? People, they are saying, oh, get over it, we've moved on. We have Raila, who is back again now, saying we are revisiting what really happened with the judiciary. It is pure thuggery. Let's just begin with you, Ambrose.
Thank you so much. My heart goes to my classmate Isaac Kisan, also of IBC. When Baba lost, Baba went for him. Eventually they had to leave. One thing I can tell Baba is no regime in history of separation of powers has ever succeeded against the judiciary and the church. Even Amin Dada Kakwa, Idi Amin, he could only kill, but he couldn't. The most vibrant judiciary in East Africa was the one of Uganda. Making decisions, Amin was killing them. Now, the one we have in Kenya is now headed by a prayer warrior. So even altars will be fighting. And I can tell you, Baba, this one, you will not win. The judiciary made their decisions, rightly or wrongly, and they're entitled to. And as a lawyer, I can tell you, anytime you lose, you have an excuse. Either they were bribed or they were wrong. That's what we tell clients. It is only very few reasonable clients that you tell them, I think they were right. And that finds, if you had prepared your client, you had prepared him, you said, we are weak on this point, we are weak on this point, we are weak on this point. So our chances are about 40%. So you go with the client, when the decision is made, client says, yeah, I think we did our best. But also if you lied to your client, say, no, this one we have a lorry load, counter load of evidence. Then when you lose, you have to tell the client, these people are tribalists, they have received a huge bribe, or they are biased, all this. So I think that's what Baba has been fed with. And he seems to be preparing for 2027 elections. People say he's about to retire, but I say Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. I voted for Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the Dayan of opposition, at the age of 84. Baba is still very young, so 2027 we could see Mandela is preparing the ground. What I don't understand is coming from enjoying a massage in, he said, those spatial and enjoying a massage. You know, massage the ball, you turn your back like this, and if you're a man, then very beautiful ladies, they touch your neck. How about enjoying that? Then you come and tell the children of Hoi Polloi, prepare yourselves for demonstration. 1 million. Some of you will be killed and buried, some will be beaten up and down. Your economy will go down, so you go home and sleep hungry. But me, if I feel shocked, I take a holiday, kidogo, and I enjoy myself. So what Baba is saying is that any time he does not win, there's a problem with these institutions. The only time these institutions will be right, the Court of Appeal, IEBC, is when he wins. This time we gave him everything. We gave him the state, we gave him Sana Ongina, even when I gave him the vote. So if he should tell us where the problem is, we gave him everything. The only thing we didn't give him is our spouses. But we gave him everything. This country.
Where we means? We gave him. Where we means who? Because you seem to be talking as part of the state.
No.
I mean,
I'm talking about the team that was in Jubilee. And the Jubilee had the machinery, the structure, the street structures, everything required to win power. He had said all along that he has been winning. What was lacking was deep state and real state and all those states. So those who are put at his disposal. That is what I mean. He interrupted. So let our people learn that we cannot grow through these threats, killing institutions. My message to Baba is this. The son of Ngina was a prince, so very restrained. This other one, Kiawa.
Barak.
Hey, thank you, Debal. You know, there was an old saying we learned in school that a bad workman quarrels with his tools. And we have had 3 decades of this particular workman quarreling with the tools. It was the Chesoni Commission, the Kivuitu Commission, the Isaac Hassan Commission, and now the Chebukati Commission times 2 or 3, including boycotting a repeat presidential election. It does seem that the only right decision that can be made and that can be democratic and that should be upheld is when these entities come out and report that Raila Odinga is the winner. If they don't do that, then shame on them. We are not being told about what exactly it is that they have done that is wrong. And there would also be decent ways of even criticizing an institution like the Supreme Court without undermining its integrity in the public eye, where Kenyans have by and large accepted what has been done. The African continent, the entire world, by the sheer presence at the inauguration of the deputy president, are making a statement that is lauding the performance of the IEBC and the Judiciary, and more so the Supreme Court. There seems to be a big problem here, and we must ask ourselves, what is consistent throughout these declamations? And what is consistent is that each time Raila Odinga loses, then these institutions are wrong. It is not possible that only one person could always be right, and all these institutions are undermining him. The people who have written that headline, The Return of Raila Odinga, the editors are right. I don't know whether they are masters of hyperbole, because it's not the return of Raila Odinga from the Spiced Islands. It's the return of Raila Odinga into the streets. Kenyans are being told, prepare for the return of Raila Odinga from the holiday which he has been having with the outgoing regime, and prepare for mass action in the streets, prepare for disruption of business, prepare for the disruption of life as you have known it. The street masters are back.
The street masters are back. Okay, let's hear from Professor Collins Odote.
Libal, we have had an election which has been peaceful. We've had a transition which has been peaceful. Whatever else we do, we must build on those gains. That's statement number one. Statement number two, I think having read what I've seen in the press, having listened to what the Honorable Raila is saying, I want to pick out the two sides of the conversations. I think my colleagues have picked one side, but I think there are two sides of the conversation. I think the first side of the conversation, which I agree with, is the side that says, you know, I went to Zanzibar to heal. I think that's an important conversation. And I went to heal after a loss. I think anybody who loses needs an opportunity to heal. And I think for me that's an important statement. I think something that I agree with. The second thing that I agree with is the statement that it says, you know, as citizens, we have the power to talk and we cannot be subdued. We cannot be stopped from talking, because the day we stop talking, then we end up into anarchy. I think that for me I agree with completely. The part I disagree with is the part, two things. I think the language that is used is not language that is nice. The threats that are issued are not threats that are nice. I think the threats of shame, the threats of we will throw you out, I think it's not good statements, especially exactly. If you recognize our history, I think Barack makes the point, you can criticize an institution, but don't criticize it in a manner that demeans the institution. And for me, if you look at today's Star, I think somebody at the Star asked me a question about even the language of the judgment. I said, for me, first, let us wait for the detailed judgment, because what is important is for us to focus on the substance and not the subterfuge. Because when we do so, on both sides of the divide, both from those who give the decision and from those who receive the decision, if we start focusing on that, then we destroy as opposed to building. I think, speaking for myself, I have made the point, I am patiently waiting to read the detailed ruling. Because this idea of starting to give substantive comments based on just the summary, I think sometimes misses the point. And I think Raila said, let's wait for the detailed judgment. I hope when the detailed judgment comes, when anybody wants to have a conversation, we can have a conversation on the substance and not subterfuge. Because when we have on the subterfuge, then we create an environment where we start making statements on both sides that doesn't build. And I think the one thing that we must all accept out of this process is, as a country, we have demonstrated the maturity of our democracy. A mature person behaves differently from somebody who is not mature. So I'm pleading that for all of us who have the conversation, we will have that conversation, not just the Honorable Raila Odinga, but everybody else, including ourselves. We will have a conversation that ensures that we move to that mature level, so that we focus our eye on the ball and not focus on destroying things.
Thank you. Finally, let's hear from Churchill.
Thank you very much. One, I think that we all know, I'm not speaking for the family, but we all know that. Who are we? I mean, as Kenyans, we know.
Let him execute his point.
As Kenyans,
just give him a chance because of time.
As Kenyans, no, I mean, can you give me my space? As Kenyans, we know that the Right Honorable Raila hurt himself, and he's one man who, whenever he's unwell, makes it public, unlike others. Yet we know that, yes, humans, they get unwell at some point or the other. We know for a fact that he fell while in the gym and hurt himself. Even yesterday, I mean, when he was, as a human being, I could say he needed time also to recover. That part of recovery could be the physical and, of course, the hurting from losing an election. And he has explained as much. It's natural. He's just trying to be himself. Two is that the fact that the judiciary or the Supreme Court, which is the apex of our judiciary, ruled in a particular way, obviously did not go down with almost half of the country. And we are talking about a candidate who got 31% of the registered voters, the voters who registered, against a president who got 32% of the registered voters. Now, there is 37 who did not even bother to vote, but they were registered. Then there are those who did not even bother to register as voters. Now, you can assume that, you know, the country is divided down the middle, but it's not. Who are these people who did not even bother to register, and why are they disenchanted with our politics? And that, for me, is a powder cake, which needs to be addressed, because if we do not find out who these people did not bother to register, and the 37 who did not even bother to vote but are registered, then you are seeing a situation where anybody who is disgruntled, you know, can exploit. Secondly, institutions must be held to account, whether it's the judiciary, and I think it is fair for people to comment. The Raila's comment may have come out a bit angry. It's the first time he's speaking publicly about it, and having gone to recover, you would expect that there'll be emotions. That is speaking, first speaking would have those emotions. Of course, with the time, he will heal and be less emotional as he may have appeared. If we do not, you know, hold institutions to account, we risk making dictators out of otherwise very innocent people. And so I want to believe that, you know, institutions, public or state institutions, must be held to account, only but that we must hold them into account in a manner that helps them to grow, pinpointing areas of improvement. And it is good that he talked about reforms, and we are all agreed, including judiciary itself, talked about dysfunctionalities in IEBC, and those perhaps is what he had in mind when he spoke.
Thank you. Thank you. Gentlemen, unfortunately, I'm really pinched for time. We just have to wind up here. I want to even have your headline thoughts as well, because I'm being hounded out of studio. I want to thank you profusely for, of course, sharing your thoughts this morning, and a good civic duty that you do every Friday at least, or even during the week, to make sure that at least Kenyans are informed as well on the current state of play and the political tone and tenor in the country. I want to thank you also for your valued company. We continue with this conversation next week. A lot of development that will have happened today. Remember, as I mentioned, today Kenya Kwanza is meeting at Naivasha with the president, that is William Ruto. And of course, that is a very pivotal meeting to chart the way forward, and we eagerly await to see also if there will be any listing of the cabinet secretaries as well, and the structure of government. Thank you for